The housing affordability equation, how modular supply and MVRV taxation can fix the system. Introduction. Housing affordability is not a mystery, it's math. But instead of solving the equation, we keep rewriting the rules. Politicians float 50-year mortgages, banks front-load interest, cities chase inflated comps to boost tax rolls. Meanwhile, everyday people are left stretching their paychecks across decades just to keep a roof over their heads. This is not an affordability solution. It's debt servitude dressed up as access. It's time to flip the frame. What if we stop trying to stretch buyers to fit the price and instead compress the cost to fit the buyer? That's the core idea behind the housing affordability equation. Affordability equals W divided by the sum of P, I, T, M, and U, where A is the affordability score, higher is better, W is monthly income, P is principal repayment, I is interest, T is property tax, M is maintenance and insurance, U is utilities. This formula doesn't just describe affordability, it reveals where to intervene. This exposition argues that if we want housing to be functional, fair, and future-proof, we need to attack the structural drivers of unaffordability, not camouflage them with clever financing. That means reducing the cost of supply through modular or prefab construction, fixing property taxation by using a realized value model, or MVRV, instead of chasing speculative price spikes. Together, these interventions target the deepest layers of the affordability crisis, not with subsidy, not with debt, but with design, production logic, and incentive alignment. Let's start with what we're doing wrong and why the 50-year mortgage may be the final stage of a long, slow failure. 2. The false promise of 50-year mortgages. At first glance, the idea sounds helpful. Stretch the loan term to reduce monthly payments and make housing more affordable. But in reality, the 50-year mortgage is not a solution. It's a sedative, a policy tranquilizer designed to dull the pain of unaffordable home prices without addressing the cause. 1. The math doesn't save you, it bleeds you slower. Take a $1 million mortgage at a 6.5% interest rate. 30-year payment, about $6,320 per month. 50-year payment, about $5,637 per month. Savings, about $683 per month. For all the extra time, 20 more years of debt, you only gain a few $100 in breathing room. But the interest paid over the life of the loan nearly doubles, from about $1.2 million to about $2.3 million. In other words, you save on the monthly, but pay for it in your soul. 2. Artificial demand equals real price inflation. Lower monthly payments don't make homes cheaper. They make it easier to bid up prices. Just like 30-year mortgages once did, 50-year mortgages will allow buyers to stretch for bigger homes and sellers to raise prices accordingly. It won't bring in new buyers who were locked out. It will just push existing buyers further into debt and inflate the entire market one rung higher. Result: affordability does not improve. The price floor rises, making the next generation even more dependent on longer, more expensive loans. 3. Debt becomes a lease, disguised as ownership. The longer the term, the longer you're just renting money. Because mortgages are front-loaded with interest, it can take decades to build meaningful equity. In a 50-year mortgage, you might spend 15 to 20 years just scratching the surface of your principal. If prices fall, or if you're forced to sell early, you could walk away with no equity or even negative net worth. In this sense, 50-year mortgages act like pay-to-play leases with a risk tail. And that's assuming you stay in the home. Most people move every 7 to 10 years, which means many borrowers would restart the debt clock multiple times across a lifetime. 4. The real winners: asset holders and banks. This structure benefits those who already own real estate and those who lend against it. Landlords gain extra rent capacity from buyers turned renters. Banks earn more in interest over longer periods. Governments collect more in property taxes as comps rise. Once again, the system rewards rent extraction over equity building. Bottom line, the 50-year mortgage is not a fix. It is a financial gimmick that props up inflated prices and extends the life of the problem. It treats the symptom, unaffordable monthly payments, while feeding the disease: structurally overpriced housing. If we want real affordability, we need to stop engineering ways to stretch buyers and start compressing the cost stack itself. That brings us to the affordability equation and how we can break it down and rebuild it right. 3. Deconstructing the housing affordability equation. Affordability equals W divided by the sum of P, I, T, M, and U. This equation doesn't just model affordability, it maps the battlefield. Each variable represents a pressure point where policy, design, or technology can intervene. Let's walk through each one. W equals wage or income. This is your fuel. The numerator, the source of all hope in the affordability equation. But in most developed economies, wages have flatlined while asset prices have exploded. According to OECD data, real wages have grown only 0.3 to 1.5% annually in many advanced countries, while home prices outpaced them by 3 to 5 times over the past 2 decades. The system's response? Don't raise wages, just offer longer mortgages. This is why we need to attack the denominator instead. Principal repayment. This is the base price of the house, the sticker shock. But it's more than just a number. It reflects speculative land values, supply constraints like zoning, NIMBYism, and building codes, cheap credit inflating demand. Until we build more supply at cost, principal prices will continue to detach from production reality. Modular prefab housing, which we'll cover in Section 4, directly targets this variable, interest. This is where the banks make their money, especially with longer terms. Interest isn't just a cost, it's a penalty for time. The longer your term, the more you pay. Worse, most mortgages are front-loaded, so you spend years just feeding the lender before touching your equity. In the housing affordability equation framework, interest acts like a time tax, and longer mortgages make it heavier. Any intervention that reduces the need for debt, such as shared equity, rent-to-own, or fractional cash purchases, brings this number down and improves affordability. Property tax. This is the most misunderstood variable and one of the most unjust. Under the current system, if your neighbor sells for 40% more, your home gets reassessed and your taxes go up, even if you didn't sell, refinance, or upgrade a single thing. This phantom pricing distorts household budgets and forces displacement, especially for long-term, low-income residents in gentrifying areas. The fix? MVRV-style taxation, which we'll explore in depth in Section 5, pegs your tax to your own realized value, your purchase price, not the market's mood swings. M. Maintenance and insurance. This includes everything from roof repairs to rising insurance premiums, both of which are escalating due to aging housing stock, climate change, including flood and fire zones, material shortages. But modular housing offers a powerful countertrend: lower maintenance costs due to new builds and standardized parts, better resilience with modern materials and climate adaptation, predictable upkeep through factory-controlled quality assurance. This variable shrinks under prefab logic, which also lightens the ownership burden. Utilities. The invisible drain: heating, cooling, water, electricity. In inefficient buildings, especially older homes, utility costs can rival mortgage payments. Retrofitting helps, but it's expensive and slow. Modular construction again offers an advantage: built-in efficiency standards from day one. The shift to net zero prefab means this variable becomes minimal or even neutral over the life of the home. Recap. Each denominator variable, principal, interest, taxes, maintenance, and utilities, represents a cost center that can be targeted, compressed, or redesigned. Affordability doesn't come from asking people to earn more or stretch further. It comes from lowering the total load. And two of the most powerful tools to do that are modular construction, to shrink principal, maintenance, and utilities; MVRV taxation, to fix property taxes. Let's go deeper on the first one. This content is brought to you by Bobby Giggs. Promote your brand here and reach a wide audience across platforms like YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. Follow the links in the description to get started. Section 4. Structural fix number 1. Modular and prefab supply. The most direct way to fix housing affordability is simple: make homes cheaper to build. Modular and prefab construction offers a path to do just that, not by cutting corners, but by cutting waste, delay, and overhead. This is industrialized housing, built with the same precision and scale logic as factories or cars. Not cheap boxes, but efficient dwellings that cost 30 to 50% less to produce and can be delivered in weeks, not years. Let's break it down. 1. Factory logic versus field logic. Traditional home building is like cooking from scratch in a forest, exposed to delays, weather, labor bottlenecks, and cost overruns. Prefab is the opposite. It's assembled in controlled environments, standardized with repeatable components, faster to deploy and scale. Every unit produced reduces the per unit cost of the next one. Affordability becomes a function of throughput. This is what the auto industry learned a century ago. Housing has barely begun to catch up. To lower P, lower M, lower U. Prefab hits the affordability equation in three places. P, principal becomes lower. Units cost significantly less to build, with 20 to 50% savings depending on location and scale. M, maintenance, becomes lower. New builds, durable materials, and modular repairability reduce ongoing upkeep. U, utilities, becomes lower. Better insulation, tighter tolerances, and integrated energy systems shrink long-term bills. This isn't just theoretical, it's happening. Japan has scaled modular housing to 15 to 20% of its housing stock. Sweden, Germany, and parts of Canada use modular for affordable housing delivery. U.S. cities like Austin and Seattle are experimenting with prefab ADUs and stackable urban infill. 3. Vertical versus horizontal deployment. One criticism often raised: aren't we just building vertical sardine cans? Not necessarily. Modular units can be stacked into vertical mixed-use buildings in dense urban cores, spread as single-family detached homes in open land with shared green space, clustered into low-rise, mid-density walkable neighborhoods, think missing middle housing. The design logic is flexible. The real lever is cost per unit, and prefab brings that down dramatically regardless of layout. Number 4, prefab plus shared equity. Mortgage optional. Lower upfront costs open new doors. Rather than stretching buyers with 50-year mortgages, we can enable rent-to-own models with equity accrual over time, shared equity partnerships with nonprofit or government co-investment, fractional ownership through tokenized cash-based co-ownership. Together, this flips the script from leverage first to ownership first and makes housing a place to live, not a speculative play. Number 5, prefab as a platform, not just a product. Once prefab ecosystems mature, we can start treating housing like infrastructure, not art projects. Think standardized modular specs, interoperable parts, swappable fixtures, automated maintenance alerts, built-in renewable energy pods. It's the smart home revolution without the McMansion price tag. And when combined with MVRV-based taxation, these homes can retain long-term affordability without being punished for being livable, scalable, or well-located. Section 5. Structural fix number 2, MVRV-based property taxation. If prefab modular housing tackles the cost of production, then MVRV taxation tackles the cost of staying, especially in appreciating markets. Right now, homeowners are penalized not for what they do, but for what their neighbors do. Someone sells a home down the street at a high price, your home's assessed value jumps and your taxes go up, even if you haven't moved, sold, or upgraded a thing. This creates financial pressure to sell, pushes out long-term residents, and rewards short-term speculation over stability. Let's fix that. 1. What is MVRV? In crypto, the MVRV ratio equals market value divided by realized value, where market value equals the current price if sold today, realized value equals the price you paid, your cost basis. This distinction allows us to separate speculative hype from actual economic activity. We can apply the same logic to real estate. 2. MVRV applied to housing under an MVRV-style system. You're taxed based on your last purchase price. That tax basis remains frozen until you sell, refinance, or transfer title. Neighboring sales no longer trigger arbitrary hikes. Your home becomes like your Bitcoin. Until you act, the system can't mark you up. Number 3. Downturns and fairness. What happens when prices fall? You bought at $200,000 in 2025. Your neighbor buys the same unit at $150,000 in 2028. They pay tax based on $150,000. You still pay tax based on your $200,000 purchase. This may seem unfair, but it's equitable. You locked in your tax cost when you bought. They locked in a lower cost when they bought. Market swings don't hurt either of you. This is what makes MVRV fairer than mark-to-market tax logic. It stabilizes expectations and protects households from volatility. 4. Policy precedent. Proposition 13. California already has something similar. Proposition 13, passed in 1978, pegs tax assessments to purchase price plus a 2% annual cap. It has protected long-term residents from displacement, reduced housing mobility by 10 to 15%, according to MBER, cost local governments billions in potential revenue. This shows the trade-offs involved. MVRV-style tax stabilizes households, but it requires governments to rethink how they fund services. That's not a flaw. It's a prompt for fiscal innovation. Number 5. Why MVRV works best with modular housing. Modular prefab creates standardized units, each with a unique cost basis. MVRV ensures homes are taxed based on real transaction data. Equity remains off the books until it's realized. Investors can't distort the tax base just by flipping comps. This encourages long-term ownership, stable neighborhoods, reduced speculation. In short, prefab supply brings the price down and MVRV taxation keeps the pressure off. Section 6 Conclusion. Toward a new housing equation. The housing crisis isn't just a supply issue. It's not just a policy issue. It's a misalignment of incentives, embedded across cost structures, financing norms, tax systems, and even cultural expectations. But what if we started over? Not from utopia, from math. A new equation for housing affordability. Affordability equals W divided by the sum of P, I, T, M, and U, where W equals wages, P equals principal or purchase price, I equals interest, T equals property taxes, M equals maintenance and insurance, U equals utilities. This equation reminds us, affordability doesn't come from policy slogans. It comes from reducing the denominator, the total cost burden on the buyer. We don't need gimmicks like 50-year mortgages that just spread suffering across time. We need structural interventions that collapse the cost stack now. What actually moves the needle? Checkmark. Modular prefab housing drastically lowers PM and U. Factory-built homes reduce waste, speed up deployment, and deliver climate-ready units at scale. Modular isn't just cheaper, it's smarter. Checkmark. MVRV-based taxation fixes T. You're taxed on what you paid, not what your neighbor paid. Like Bitcoin, your cost basis stays frozen until you move, refinance, or sell. No more phantom taxes, no more forced displacement. Checkmark. Alternative ownership models reduces or eliminates I. With shared equity, fractional cash purchases, and rent-to-own structures, debt becomes optional, and shorter-term ownership paths become viable. Why this matters? The current system treats homes as speculative chips in a rigged casino. It punishes long-term ownership, rewards churn, and piles debt onto working families, all while governments inflate values to milk more tax revenue. This isn't a housing market. It's a tax farm wrapped in debt. We can do better. By rethinking how we build and how we tax, we can restore housing to its rightful place. A place to live, not a financial trap. Final word. This isn't about left or right. It's about right-sizing the problem with tools we already have. Prefab modular supply plus MVRV-based taxation equals a future where affordability is designed in, not priced out. Let's stop asking, why is housing so expensive? And start building toward a system where it isn't.